Well, it's still the breakfast in Plus TV Africa. We look at the risks of thrombosis and road accident. According to new findings by the World Health Organization, WHO, more than half of all road traffic deaths among vulnerable road users, pedestrians, cyclists, and motorcyclists. Shockingly, and road traffic injuries are also the leading cause of death for children and young adults aged 5 to 29 years. According to reports, 1.3 million people die globally on an annual basis as a result of road traffic accidents. As a continent, Africa has recorded the highest road accident deaths in the world, with Nigeria topping the list of African countries with the most traffic accident-related fatalities. Speeding is the leading cause of accident in Nigeria, according to findings, research and reports, followed by traffic signs and light violation, wrongful overtaking, and dangerous driving. According to the National Bureau of Statistics, 1,834 people die out of 3,345 road accidents that occurred in the country between January and March 2022. These are bleak statistics, made even more grim when the death toll increases among injured drivers, passengers, and pedestrians following prolonged hospitalization. How can being taken care of in a hospital have negative outcome when a pedestrian is injured in a traffic accident in the hospital, is in the hospital undergoing treatment? They are often immobile for a very long time, and during recovery, being immobile for a prolonged period of time increases the risk of a person developing thrombosis or blood clot. They say thrombosis specialists speaking and leading the Nigerian hemorrhagists in the country. We have a guest this morning joining the conversation, Dr. Helen Okoye, who's attending physician and thrombosis specialist, like I mentioned earlier on, University of Nigeria Teaching Hospital. Dr. Helen Okoye, it's good to have you join us.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Okay. My question here to you now is, what's the correlation, if you like to say, between road accident and thrombosis, looking at the fact that the eminent cause of thrombosis is really not necessarily road accident?
Okay, thank you. So let me begin by saying something little about thrombosis. Okay, what is thrombosis? Thrombosis is the clotting of blood. It's a natural process, it's physiologic, but when it's not necessary and it starts clotting, that is where the problem is. So thrombosis is the inappropriate clotting of blood. All right. So how does it correlate to road traffic accidents? First of all, we'll look at the pathogenesis of thrombosis. Richard Triad described the pathogenesis of thrombosis using three basic mechanisms: the stasis of blood, hypercoagulability, that's the increased thickening of blood, and then damage to the endothelium, to the blood vessels. So any disturbance whatsoever to any of these components of the virtuous triad will ultimately lead to thrombosis. Then there are other risk factors that will contribute to the development of thrombosis in this patient. So how does it relate to road traffic accidents? We know that road traffic accident patients, they may be injured severe enough to cause trauma to the blood vessels. So at times you have accident victims that are bleeding. Maybe there has been damage to the blood vessels. These people come in. Apart from the fact they have damaged their blood vessels, they have crush injuries that may have released from some thrombogenic proteins into the blood, increasing the hypercoagulability of blood in the process. Then when they come into the hospital, oftentimes some of them have broken limbs, and they are made to be in bed for a long time. Once someone is admitted up to 48 to 72 hours, the risk of thrombosis increases. So these are factors the accident victims face that make them be at higher risk of developing thrombosis. Then in the management of this patient, they may require surgery in one way or the other. Surgery itself puts them at risk also. Then sometimes they may require transfusion, they may require drugs that may also increase the hypercoagulability of blood in this patient. They may require central venous catheters, like putting infusion through the central veins. These are also risk factors to development of thrombosis. So yeah, there's a correlation between road traffic accidents and development of thrombosis through disturbances in the determinants of the pathogenesis of thrombosis.
All right. So I've been in several times. Dr. Okoye, Kofi Bartels here. I've been several times in an emergency ward. Several times in emergency ward. I've taken an accident victim once, but I've attended to people close to me several times, and I've seen many accident victims being brought into the emergency ward, particularly in a public health institution. I'm talking about a teaching hospital, federal government-owned teaching hospital. Are there practices that you're aware of in the management of accident victims in our teaching hospital that need to change to be able to make sure that people do not die, more people don't die from thrombosis?
Oh yes, there are several things that have been put in place, especially where I work. The most important one of them is risk assessment. You treat your patients on individualized basis. You treat the patient as they come, not as generally like one umbrella fits everyone. No. So as they come, you assess them for the risk of thrombosis. You also assess them for risk of bleeding, because it's not all patients that are fit to receive anticoagulants, to receive certain types of treatment for thrombosis. So when they come, we have what we call VTE safety zone in our hospital. And we have a template, like a questionnaire. We administer each patient to determine their risk of developing thrombosis. So it's called a risk assessment tool. There are so many risk assessment tools, okay? Then hospitals try to fund theirs depending on the local factors they have on ground. For the common ones, you have the Caprini score for surgical patients, you have the Corona score for cancer patients, you have the Padua for medically ill patients. So all these risk assessment models try to assess that individual patient at that time. So for our RTA patients, that's the road traffic accident victims, when they come in, within the first few hours of admission, we try to risk assess them to know their risk of developing thrombosis and manage them accordingly.
Well, Helen Okoye, doctor, would you say that thrombosis is just limited to road accident or, a mild core outside road accident? Especially when you talk about blood clothing.
No, it's not related to. It's not.
My question is it just limited to road accident that would definitely lead to injuries, or it cuts across injuries?
Okay, it's not limited to road traffic accidents that may cause just injury. At times, some injuries, you don't see it. Some people come to the hospital that are involved in road traffic accidents. Maybe they are complaining of pain, abdominal pain, but you don't know that they have injured or maybe they are bleeding inside until you do some investigations. So these people, the road traffic accidents undergo different forms of trauma, be it physical or emotional, be it apparent or those that are covert, that you may need further investigations to determine. So in such situations, they may not have obvious physical injury, but they have injury within.
No, but
Then
Dr.
other,
Okoye, my
yeah.
question here is, I mean, we know that injuries, we're trying to establish, you have said that there's a connection with, road accident and thrombosis. And because of the fact that, when accident happened, this road accident, it's likely that some persons would be injured. In most cases, some not seen, just like you've mentioned. And I'm saying that can thrombosis occur outside of, this specific accident that we know about, or it can occur in different, kind of accidents, injuries, because sometimes people get injured. I mean, you're in the kitchen, you have, the knife, you're using the kitchen and you're chopping something and then there's a cut. I'm asking, is it just limited to road accident injuries, or it cuts across different injuries?
Okay, I'm not sure if I understand your question because it's not so clear. But if you are asking about the type of injury that will predispose one from developing thrombosis, yeah, when you have like minor injuries, maybe just have a tiny clot or a bruise, yes, you may not be at high enough risk to develop thrombosis. But if you have severe trauma, crush injuries, broken limbs, fractures, yes, the risk of thrombosis increases with such, yes.
Right.
Or any significant damage to the blood vessel
Right.
will cause the person to have increased risk of developing thrombosis.
Well, I think you have answered the question, clearly.
Yeah, very quickly before we go, are there any risk factors that mean that some persons who are involved in these accident situations may stand a higher risk of developing the thrombosis you're talking about? If there are risk factors, I mean, certain category of people may be more at risk, even in an accident situation. We all have accidents, but these people are more at risk. What are these risk factors? If we can just quickly run us through those.
Okay, the risk factors add to the risk the patient acquires as he or she gets involved in road traffic accidents. This risk can be patient-related, and the risk can also be environmental-related. When I talk about patient-related, you have the risk directly gotten from that event, the road traffic accident, which depends on the gravity, on the extent of damage, the extent of injury the patient sustained. Then other patient-related factors are other background risk factors the patient may have, like obesity. Of course, thrombosis is higher in obese people. Then the elderly, those older patients are more at risk of developing thrombosis. Then people with other forms of thrombophilias, be it acquired thrombophilias or inherited thrombophilias, pregnant women or breastfeeding mothers, just the first 6 weeks of delivery, these have individuals that have higher risk of developing thrombosis. So when they are involved in road traffic accidents, their risk increases.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Helen Okoye. We have to bring the conversation to an end now, but we appreciate your thoughts and your time. And we look forward to speaking with you in October, where there will be time for World Thrombosis Day.
Thank you.
All right, then. Dr. Helen Okoye is an attending physician and thrombosis specialist, University of Nigeria Teaching Hospital. That's a great one.
I never knew this was a thing, so good to know, good to be informed and enlightened. Not everything politics and, no, we have to take things like this. And I've been well enlightened about this, especially when she talked about the risk factors. We've learned a new word today, thrombosis.
Oh, well. Well, that was the size of our conversation. It's been, an amazing time. We will return tomorrow, all things being equal. I am Messi Boko, but it's all right to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And do subscribe to our YouTube channel at PlusTvAfrica and PlusTvAfrica Lifestyle.
From all of us here at our studios on Victoria Land, Lagos, my name is Kofi Bartels. On behalf of the entire team, thanks for joining us. We return tomorrow, same time. Good morning.